Adam Garrett-Clark with Neighborship, and this is our resiliency hub in progress. So one of our awesome ambassadors and volunteers had this brilliant idea, Courtney, to get some folks together and try to clear some of the weeds. So this part of West Oakland, the groundwater we learned is like 8 feet down, and just every summer, or every spring rather, the weeds just shoot up like 7 feet tall. And so we're just clearing to get rid of fire hazards here mostly, and then also just trying to tidy up to make a more attractive, beautiful space so people can envision what this could be. Yeah, so we just finished our testing, which is considered the phase 2 part of the investigation. So phase 1 is doing some research, and phase 2 is actually doing the testing. So we've done the testing and the results are in, and now all the scientists are interpreting it, and we're trying to figure out what is the health risks of this site so that we can communicate it to the neighbors. And after that, we should get clearance to begin our bioremediation pilot project. So our vision is to hold some workshops here on site with our consultant, who's a PhD specialist in these types of interventions. Yeah, the basic gist of what we're planning to do is we're gonna designate multiple plots on this site, probably 7 to 9 different 10 by 10 squares. And we're gonna experiment in each one of those squares with different approaches. So we might, in one, work with the fungus that's existing in the soil, take it out and put it into a lab to grow bigger, and then reintroduce the fungi back into the soil and see if that helps stimulate remediation. We might take outside fungal species in another plot and put those into the soil and see if that starts to digest the toxins. We might do a combination of fungal species and plants, and so all those different variations we'll experiment with in these 7 or so plots. And basically it's going to be a lot of gardening. It's going to be a lot of inoculating mulch, spreading the mulch, watering, and then monitoring the progress. So we are looking for community members who are able to dedicate some time and help us with that. And then we're also planning to do some workshops for the general public to come and learn. Well, I actually lived on this land for about 6 years, not on this specific site, but just next door, which was also part of the junkyard. And it was always just a point of curiosity for me, how much at risk am I living on this soil? And my little sister lives not too far away. I have friends that live around here. Everybody knows that if you live in West Oakland, your soil is potentially toxic because there's just been so much of a long history of industrial activity in this neighborhood. So it's just important to protect our health, and also, to understand how we can interact with the soil and garden. Most of us garden in raised beds, for instance, here. But could we clean the soil with gardening and then maybe grow food?
Yeah.
Resiliency Hub is this concept of having multiple little nodes across communities that are a resource center, essentially, for neighbors in that area in the case of an emergency, a natural disaster. So think of like an earthquake. All the utilities may be shut down for a couple weeks. There may be people that need breathing machines. There may be people that need food resources. So a resiliency hub would be designed to be a resource in that type of situation. In our case, because our tiny home community was totally off grid, we invested, and we did a lot of gardening. We invested in, like, one of our major assets is this 3 kilowatt solar system, and inside that RV is a battery bank that we designed, and that was part of our community center in our tiny home community. So that's the major asset in a natural disaster. People can come and get energy here. We do have some water storage here. We have this shower structure here that could be set up for showers in an emergency. Obviously we have space for growing food. But the big thing to say is that a resiliency hub can be a lot of different things, and it's really supposed to be the most valuable to the specific community that it's in. And so our big ask is for people to think about this site, think about emergencies, what they may need, and think about how we can set this site up to be the most resourceful for them in an emergency. And of course, while there's no emergencies happening, we also want to be a resource to the community. So one of the big ideas we've thought about is just a community garden. That's kind of an obvious idea, but we do have space to store food, and since we have energy here, we could store refrigerated food. We also have a house, a housing precarity crisis here, homelessness. And so we do have some folks that have used this space as a resource in that way as well, to charge their phones, get off the streets. But then I've also heard that some neighbors just want like a third space where people can come and gather, just kind of a beautiful space to kind of hang out. There's a lot of nice condos around here that have their nice kind of public spaces for them. But for the average renter or homeowner that doesn't live in one of those communities, maybe this could be a third space where people could come and have a birthday party or just have tea with friends. So there's a lot of different potential directions it could go, and we want to know what makes the most sense for the neighbors around here. And then we'll try to raise the money and figure out how to do it. Neighborship is a nonprofit with a mission to support urban tiny home living. And so it was spawned out of our tiny home community experiment next door. Right now our major activity is this grant to try to clean the soil, but eventually we'd like to raise money to develop tiny home communities. This site in particular could legally put one tiny home. So we were thinking maybe we could put a tiny home, say, in the back, and then towards the front have the resiliency hub, and maybe the resident in there could be a steward for the resiliency hub. There's a lot of different ways that could go, but yeah, Neighborship is all about supporting urban, affordable tiny home living. I mean, I bought this on Craigslist in 2014, and I was trying to experiment in tiny house living. I realized a tiny home is just an RV. With just different building materials. So rather than try to build my own tiny home and take like 6 months to a year and lots of money, I bought this for $1,200 on Craigslist. I found a $100 bill in it, so it cost me $1,100. I, hardened it and lived out of it for about 3 or 4 years, and eventually this was in our tiny home community. Eventually I moved out of it, and eventually we turned this into a community space for the tiny home community. So one of the big purposes of this space, obviously we gutted it, of course, we took out all the former RV stuff, and me and a friend reframed the whole back half, resided it, and put in this new paneling, put in lights, put in new outlets, all connected to this battery bank. So this is the main purpose of this site. At the tiny home community, it served as a community kitchen and hangout spot, but also it was a house for this energy system. So this is a Nissan car leaf battery. So it's an EV battery that I bought on eBay, and me and a friend dissected these modules and turned it into a battery bank. It's essentially like the same size as a Tesla Powerwall. And then we've got this pretty beefy charge controller inverter device. And then we've got about 3 kilowatts of solar panels up above us. So the solar panels come in to this charge controller, and then that makes the energy digestible to the battery bank. And then also the wires connecting to this created an inverter that turns the DC power into 120 volts, which you would get at your house. And so then we've got these plugs, and we've actually had enough power to use a welder here to work on the RV, and lots of power tools. And like I said, this is a resource right now for one gentleman who lives in an RV on the street, who comes in here to charge up his devices and kind of get off the streets. But in an emergency, this is an ample source of power.